Samantha.
We're getting there.
Again, my name is John Carlton, for a new basis, shareholder and bank, lead auditor on the audit team. And tonight I really want to just kind of spend 15 minutes or so talking about the audit, talking about the management communication letter, which is just that, our communication letter, including the audit to the council. And that letter contains really a couple different things. Page 1 through 4 is the communication to the city council. And that letter goes through a number of different topics, and I will not read each one of those. It's very similar year to year. Certainly recommend all council members to read that and understand the various things we're talking about there. But if you'll notice, if you pull out last year's, you'll notice it really doesn't change a whole lot. That's good. The takeaways from that, summarized in a few seconds, is you received unmodified opinion on your financial statements. So we were able to issue that as part of your comprehensive annual financial report. So good job there. That's exactly what you strive to do. Simply means that your financial statements contained in the comprehensive annual financial report were audited, and in fact, we issued an opinion on those. So good job there. We certainly appreciate the effort your management staff puts into preparing that audit and preparing those financial statements themselves. Page 5, page 5, that's really the summary financial information, and I want to just talk a little bit about that. What you're looking at there is directly from the financial statements itself, and what this is really doing is it's going through the fund balances. So you're seeing the ending fund balances as of December 31, 2015. The first underscore, double underscore there on the top half of the page is the total general fund. Fund balance of $10,024,148, up from $9,443,494 a year ago. So we take a look at that $10 million. We have really a couple different components of fund balance in the general fund that we report on, and the non-spendable is the first fund type. And you have $3,870,000 that are tied up or in assets on your statement of net position or advances to other funds. So really the way to look at that is you're pulling that money out of that $10 million because you don't have it. It's an asset, it's increasing your fund balance to $10 million, you don't have it available to you. At some point in time, the point is you probably will or you expect to have that, but not at this time. Inventories and prepaid items, $401,000. Again, you've spent that money prior to the end of 2015 related to items for 2016. So again, that's an asset. 401,000 is non-spendable because you've already spent it. Then you're left with the bottom two categories, which is committed and then unassigned, and that's kind of where you draw the line there, where the rest of that money is available to you as part of your fund balance. But you've committed a portion of that. So $720,137, very consistent with the year before. You've committed for various things, and your comprehensive annual financial report and your financial statements and related footnotes details all of that, but it's various earmarked funds that you've set aside money to spend in subsequent budgets, 2016 and beyond. Then you're left with the unassigned, $5,032,077, up from $4,362,000 a year ago, and that's really the important number. That's the carryover into the 16 budget year that we're in right now. And of course, you're starting the 17 budget already, so that number is very important as you look at your 16, evaluate 16 as well. If you turn to page 6, we'll kind of flip back and forth briefly here. You can kind of see a 5-year comparison in a graph as far as that 10 million fund balance and then the unassigned of 5 million that we just talked about. And you can see there's some peaks and valleys there, but you can kind of see the trend there was trending down for a few years there as far as the unassigned portion of that. Now that had to back up a little bit. And then total fund balance, very good, very steady fund balance between $9.5 and $10 million. Again, you see that 15 being up. The bottom part there is simply just a similar with all the components, and you can kind of see a different variation of that. That's in there just as a service, better understanding as we'll see that in a graphic term. The general fund balance of $5,032,000 represents a balance of 15.9% of the annual general fund budget. And that's an important number because, again, 15 to 20% is really considered an ideal minimum or an ideal range of your unassigned fund balance. So you're right in that range. You're the minimum, what's that based on, the 15 to 20, is really 2 months. So 2.5 months is about 16%. So you're right there, you're a little bit under that, but right there. So certainly what we consider very good fund balance levels. The rest of that page goes through the special revenue funds, and I won't spend a lot of time on those. Those are the fund balances at the year end for various special revenue funds that are earmarked for those particular purposes that you're seeing there. To be a special revenue fund, you have to meet the criteria that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board has set forth. So $7,394,000 total special revenue funds. Debt service fund, $880,000. Again, 100% earmarked or reserved, not reserved, but committed for future debt. Capital project funds, we have a capital improvement fund of $3,479,000, which is carried over to be used for project costs, capital improvements. And then the rest of those capital project funds are all your TIP, your tax incremental districts, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And you'll see a number of deficits there. And again, that's really related to the advance number on the top. Your general fund, that's the way TIFs or TIDs work, is you advance money to the TIDs, and then over time they're funded and the money comes back. We've covered page 6. First of all, any questions on page 5? Okay. Page 7 talks a little bit, switches gears a little bit about from the governmental fund balances, which we talked about where you ended the year, what balances carried over. Now we talk a little bit about how you got there in these particular funds. Why? Because they're business type activities, so we focus more on operations. Water utility operating revenues, of course, your charges for services, those are your public charges for water. $5,236,000. You'll see a significant increase there from $4,500,000. That is because of a water rate increase. And you can see the operating expenses up also $3,732,000. So you see the operating income there, that third underscore there, $1,504,000. So you see an increase there from $817,000. Again, that's related to your increase. Now the non-operating revenues, in this case net expense of $40,000, which includes interest income and gain on sale of assets. And then you have a transfer out of $1,129,000. That's your property, your PILT, property owned taxes back to the city. And then your change in that position before cumulative effect of change is really a $345,000 increase. So you can see you had a large operating income, but yet only about a $300,000 change in that position, compared to a negative $306,000 a year ago. Now the cumulative effect of change in accounting principle is related to a change on your CAFR, and I didn't have a lot of time. I don't think I have time to go through it, but I'll just mention it briefly here, and that is related to the pension asset. The Wisconsin retirement, I think last year we talked a little bit about that change coming up, and for the first time now your financial statements contain an asset, which is the overfunding or the fully funded portion of the Wisconsin retirement system that all of your employees participate in. And that's a kind of a big discussion, probably a 20-30-minute discussion in and of itself. You know, again, for time purposes, I'll just kind of leave it at that. If you do have any questions on that, please get a hold of me. I can come back a second time and we can go through that, or certainly you can explain that as well.
And I think too, that, when the GASB comes up with these rules, they're looking at not just the state of Wisconsin, but the entire United States. And so, some states do not have well-funded retirement plans, and this disclosure is an opportunity to really show communities or states that are underfunded. And because Wisconsin has done such a good job, and because so many municipalities, if you remember years and years ago, we all paid off our unfunded balances because the state was charging us 8% on that unfunded balance. We could go to the market and pay 2%, so we all refinanced that basically, and this is really just showing that, that unfunded balance was really an actuarially devised number, and so, we should have a balance basically that shows that, we have funded it, and there's people that will be retiring sometime in the future that will draw on that.
Yeah, to sum it up in really 2 sentences is exactly that, is because it's an asset that doesn't necessarily relate to the health, because this year, for example, in 16, we're expecting it to be a little bit of a liability. What's important is how close to zero is it? Ideally, you want it to be zero, right? Because then it'd be fully funded, not overfunded, not underfunded. But it's gonna slip a little bit because it's not perfect. The key to take away is Wisconsin retirement system's in a position to manage it. So you'll see the rates going up. You just got a notice of that the rates are gonna go up a little bit. Anytime they're starting to dip a little bit, just raise the rates to increase contributions. Other states, which again, Wisconsin's one of 2 to 3 states that are overfunded, they're fully funded. Other states in the nation, which are 30, 40% funded only, they can't just raise the rates because they'd have to raise them too high.
Sure.
So that's what this GASB and that's why this exists. But it's really a good thing for you because you can now monitor how the Wisconsin retirement system's doing. You always could watch that and look at that, but it was a whole lot more work. Now it's all right in your financial report. So, any questions with the water utility? Page 8, wastewater utility, again, same concept here. Charges for services, $5,290,000 compared to operating expenses of $3,600,000. Operating income up a little bit from last year, $1,670,000. Comparing that to non-operating expenses, $64,000, and then transfers out and then a capital contribution in. You have change in that position of $1,174,000. That position at the end of the year for this wastewater, $39,292,000. Questions on that? Parking, kind of speed up here, same concepts. $593,000, bringing money in, charges for services for parking. The total operating expenses just short of $1,800,000, so you did a little bit larger of a loss this year of just under $840,000. Property taxes coming in to fund that, $211,000, and then capital contributions of $950,000, change in that position, $323,000. And you'll see that cumulative effect change. That is carried over on each of your business type activities related to that.
And if I can just point out, if you look at the loss in revenues, like in 2014, we had 1.1 million, and in 2015, 953,000. That's quite a dip, and there was a combination of things that contributed to that. One is the closing of Pennies. I mean, we saw a dramatic drop in revenues in that Pennies ramp, not only from the employees that used to work at Pennies, but the visitors or the shoppers. And then also, if you recall, we had a number of requests to basically enter into long-term parking agreements and reduce the parking rate with the sale of the Wausau, not the Wausau Center Mall, but the M&I building.
City Square Office.
Yeah. So we renegotiated those rates. And also, the old property manager there, once it was sold to Compass, the old property manager basically was purchasing permits that they weren't using in concern that she would someday need them, and so she was basically buying vacant space. And once Compass bought that, they had a change in philosophy, so they reduced the amount of purchases substantially. So those were the main contributors to that, but it definitely had an impact on the financial position, because if you see the expenses really were not impacted by that, because so many of our expenses, utilities and things like that are fixed, regardless of how many people are using the ramp.
They should hire her back. Because we were trying to balance
I know.
parking, we couldn't figure out what was going on. The number of available parking.
Page 10, again, switches gears and talks about the Metro Ride Transit Fund. With operating revenues, passenger fares, $485,000, down slightly from $497,000. Then you had intergovernmental revenues of $1,940,000, again, down $2 million from $2,227,000 a year ago. Compare that with operating expenses, so total operating revenues were $2,426,000, and compare that with operating expenses of $3,594,000, which is also considerably down. Down both in operation and maintenance and also depreciation. You have an operating loss of $1,167,000 for the year as compared to $1,171,000. $647,000 of that deficit was funded by property tax, and then capital contributions of $199,000. Total change in that position before cumulative effect was a negative $323,000. $20,971. So slightly better than last year, but again, operating at a deficit net position rather, after that cumulative effect, which actually brought in more money into your fund because of that asset, $4,980,000.
And I can't remember if we included this on that. This again is that cumulative effect on the pension. We go through a formula, because these are enterprise funds and all of the basically income statement and balance sheet activity has to be recorded in that fund. We go through a formula to try to allocate that to the various funds based on the employees. So it, it's a little bit of an allocation.
It is.
It's not 100% exact, but we've got, a formula that's agreed to.
Now, in 2014, in that fund, did we still have Weston, Schofield, and Rothschild on board? Is some of that reduction the loss of that contract?
Yes.
Okay.
Any questions on any of that financial information? Page 11 switches gears and really concludes the management communication letter. In the last 3 pages are devoted to comments and observations. And if you remember 2 years past or have looked at this document, you'll notice that this is an area where I let you know about stuff coming up as far as different rules and regulations and standards that are coming down. That's also areas that I might recommend different things. Number one is really letting you know about something that has been in the works for a number of years. We discussed it, I know, in last year a little bit, and that's uniform grant guidance. Uniform grant guidance replaces the single audit standards, which have been around for a long, long time. And your transit program pushes you over that threshold, so you are not only have a financial statement audit, you have a single audit, a federal single audit, all wrapped up into one. Different reports, but this replaces that. So this was effective in 15, but 15 was kind of a transition year for a lot of the feds that are giving you money. 16 is going to be full force into this. We're giving you a recommendation here to really go through and take a look at your policies, procedures, your internal controls related to the grants. Certainly, we looked at all of those in compliance with the standard, and while it was acceptable and it did meet minimum requirements, you don't have any findings or anything like that, there's certainly room for improvement there. And you're not alone. Every municipality is in the same position. So this is all brand new. And the feds, how the federal government, especially your transit program, that's your main major program, how they handle it and what they have you do is up to them. And we will be seeing a little more of that in the next year or so, what they want specifically. But we're giving you kind of some overview stuff you can do to head that off. So your management response system over there.
So we basically said from a management response, I guess I think it would be good if we developed a grant management policy that, really highlighted what the departments, if you're gonna apply for grants, these are some of the things that you need to do, to, number one, increase communication, because we have had situations where, someone's gotten a grant and finance isn't even really involved in, or knowledgeable about the grant, that it actually came in, and so then there's, we have a responsibility to inventory and report those, so by notifying us, it will help us make sure that we meet those inventory requirements, and then that they should establish some basic internal controls, and that we document those internal controls, and that we review the internal controls on an annual basis. So by coming up with that policy, it helps notify the departments what's expected as far as managing those.
And the key to that is the documentation of the internal control has to be specific to the grant and specific to, especially the grant, but also the department that gets the grant. So, and it's not just one, it's all of your federal programs. So, you don't have many, luckily, but the key is to kind of start with the overall policy. So then if you get a grant, let's say next year, and it's a brand new grant in a department that you never had it before, you already have everything in place, kind of an implementation guide to say, here's what we're doing, this, and this. Boom, and then you're done. Because everything's got to be written down and it's got to be formalized.
And we implemented that indirect cost policy a couple of months ago, also because of the changes to the uniform grant levy.
Page 12, GASB 74 and 75, accounting and reporting for other post-employment benefits. 74 and 75 are coming up They are not effective as of right now. They're a few years out. They are effective for OPEB plans for fiscal years beginning after June 15th, 2016 for employers, and fiscal years beginning after June 15th, 2017 for employers rather, and then for financial statements of 16. So 17 and 18 are what the years of as far as your audit years we're looking at. What this is doing, we just talked about the pension asset, what this is doing is it's gonna put your OPEB liability on the books for the first time. Now you'll say, well, it's already there, and it is, but right now, it's there using what the current standards say, which is your annual required contribution. So an entity, just in general, could have a $3 million overall OPEB. That's a total liability, but your annual cost is only $500,000. $500,000 would be the only thing that would go on, and then it would add the next year, $500,000 would add to it again, but you didn't fund. So it could be it's a much smaller liability than the true OPEB liability. Much like the pension assets going on, now they're gonna put the entire liability on. Doesn't affect municipalities as much as it affects school districts, simply because of the number of employees and the benefit packages that are contained. But larger municipalities are going to see a real number there. And again, nothing's changing, you don't have to cut a check to anyone because of this, it's simply a reporting, much like the pension asset, you can't cash that in for money.
Sure.
It's just a reporting asset. The whole goal here, make your financial statements more usable and better reflect the overall conditions. And finally, page 13, GASB statement number 72, fair value measurement and application. Again, this one I put in here. Right now, we don't think there's a huge effect on this for you, but I put it in here and I put it in pretty much every client simply because this is related to your investments. So if you have investments that you intend to resell, hold and resell, there's going to be some requirements, going to be some reporting requirements, and how we classify some of those and various footnotes, and probably one or two more footnotes that you'll have to have in your comprehensive annual financial report. We're simply making you aware of that coming up. But we think the effect will be fairly minimal or not a big deal. Any questions on the audit in general?
Ms. Ryan?
I did. With the timing now of the audit, are you looking at the closure of Sears and concerns with CBL as a going concern for the city? And are you reviewing the CBL audits as part of the city audit?
As far as a going concern, we evaluate that every single year, yes. As far as a going concern of the city overall, and in our conclusion.
And about the mall, since the city owns the land.
Yeah, we don't audit the mall specifically, we audit the city, so, correct.
But are you basing anything about the closure of Sears and the effect that would have on the city at this point?
Again, that's all included, everything financial related up until the date of our audit is included in that. We've looked at everything.
And so what are you putting down for the effect of Sears?
As far as the effect of Sears, as far as
Closing.
The financial statements,
How it
Yes.
affects the city.
again, from a financial statement standpoint, we felt that there was no disclosure needed for that.
A little ironic.
If I could just, Shank has been doing the audit for a number of years, and so we had extended the contract 1 year for this year. So we'll be going out for RFP then on that contract. I also want to recognize Dick Whalen, who's been, really is the man behind the scenes as far as working with the auditors, responding to their needs before they even ask, right? John, he's got that down to a science and does our CAFR for us, which, there are very few communities in the state that do their own financial statements, and it adds a lot of value to us as an organization because number one, when you're putting together financial statements like that, you have a better idea of what's going on because you're looking at all of the numbers more in depth than someone who isn't, and it saves us a ton of money. The county, a number of years ago, maybe less than 5 years ago, decided to stop doing their own financial statements, and I don't recall the exact amount, but it was over $10,000 a year that their audit bill went up I'm sure that we would, you know, the county is a large entity, but I'm sure if we decided to stop doing ours, we would see a relatively similar expense. So, and he does a great job at it. So I definitely like to acknowledge that.
You know, you don't have to go yet.
Where are you going?
Okay,
Huh? Really?
all right, Ms. Ryan, briefly?
What is your opinion on Penny's then, as well as Sears if it's the same scenario next year?
Again, I don't issue opinions on various things within the city. I was hired to issue an opinion on your financial statements. So again, you have to understand that your question is related to more the city, so that would be better to the economic development or to Mary Ann. The audit itself, again, if a business, just in general, if a business goes out, so for example, if a village had a water plant or a paper plant go out, significant issue, significant effect, but yet if they replace that business within a year or two, the effect on the government's financial statement is minimal. So
But
again,
that's not the case. Penny's has not been replaced. More
Correct.
businesses are getting out
but
in the
Penny's isn't
mall.
owned by the city.
But,
The business wasn't the city's. If it
but
was
the city is
business-
getting money from tenants,
Correct,
and there's fewer tenants.
correct. It has an effect. Not
So
not
there
arguing
is
with you.
a lot of reduced revenue.
Correct.
Well, our revenues that we get from the mall would not, the real estate taxes, which of course we share with the other taxing jurisdictions, and then it would be our ground lease, our $76,000 ground lease, as well as our parking payments. So the ground lease has another 30-plus years to it. If CBL would turn that building back to us, of course, we wouldn't collect the ground lease anymore. But any future purchaser of that property has to fulfill that obligation of the ground lease. Just like when CBL purchased it from Jacobs Group, they had to continue on. So that commitment continues. The parking agreement is set, the financial aspects of the parking agreement are set to expire at the end of this year, December of 2016. So we do receive a substantial amount of money, $155,000. But we currently operate the mall in a certain way with parking attendants due to our agreement with the mall. So if we, you know, need to renegotiate those numbers, we could do some things to dramatically reduce our expenses as
As
well.
a proactive step.
As a proactive and to try to neutralize some of that parking revenue loss, and we've talked about that in the past too.
We have. Okay, now with that, the only item that we have to carry over to the 26th is item number 10, which we have deferred from the last 3 meetings. It's a TID presentation.
And it really was the whole financial presentation, not just the TID districts. And
Right.
we've covered a lot of it today too, and we covered a lot that
Right.
last time.
So a good part about the meeting on the 26th is that we do not have a council meeting at 7 that night, so we're gonna get it all in and we're gonna get her presentation through,
But we
finally.
have CIP that night.
And yes, we do, so.
It's not like you don't have meetings. You guys are hard workers.
Yes, so, but we will get that presentation
Yes.
done on the
In
26th.
no, 5 minutes it would be done.
Right,
So,
so, all right, so with that, we'll carry over item 10, and a motion to adjourn would be appropriate. Motion by Baker, second by Kellbach. Members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, none are opposed, we'll stand adjourned. The council will proceed to a photo opportunity over on Second Street and be back at 7 o'clock.